Hello, everyone. I'm just going to see if we are live in the groups. Awesome. So, guys, I just wanted to have a short conversation all about inflation because I've been seeing a lot of posts about it, and I feel like we haven't had a conversation recently about what is inflation, how it's affecting you guys, and I want to go over it. Okay. So, guys, I did a Grow Wealthy Grooming called What is Inflation and Why Should I Care? And I want to go over some of the key things that we had discussed. And of course, if you guys have any questions, I am here for you. So, when we talk about inflation, it is a general increase in prices and the fall of purchasing value in money. So, why is this important? It's because $10 is no longer worth $10. For example, if you guys had, your grandparents bought a home in 1965 or your parents bought a home in 1965, the average cost of a home was $21,500. Today, that same home would sell for about $340,000. Okay, let me repeat that. A home purchased in 1965 was only $21,500. That same exact home would now go for $340,000. I want you to think about that. That means that in only 58 years, right? I'm going to do the math here really quickly. So 940,000 minus 21,500. That means that house has gone up in value $318,000. Technically 318 and 500. But I mean, just think about how much that's gone up. That's incredible. Okay. So why is it that this matters to the grooming industry? Okay. Part of that is because most of you guys have not increased your prices yearly. Okay. So, as a pet grooming business owner, guys, you really should increase your prices annually. And this is partially because of inflation. Okay. If you don't increase your prices regularly, your business may become less profitable as your costs increase due to inflation. And by increasing your prices annually, you're going to ensure that your business remains profitable and you can cover the rising costs of goods and services. I was on a coaching call yesterday and literally it was crazy. Her rent had gone up 50%. All of her shampoo costs had gone up 50%. There's many costs that had gone up 100%. Just even our employees' rents, if they were to move into a new place, it would have gone up over 100%. Another reason is increased operating costs. Like I said, your business may have experienced increased operating costs over time. Your rent can go up. Your shampoo is going to go up, guys, right? There's lots of things that go up, okay? And the increase of costs and supplies, right, means that you have to keep up. Otherwise, that $100 that you have is not actually worth $100 because instead of paying out, let's say $30 to your groomers, now that $30 what they used to get for isn't the same. Okay. And you can cover these again by creating different options. Okay. So, guys, when you raise your prices, you can position your business as a premium service provider and differentiate yourself from charging lower prices. So, for instance, I had a conversation, and again, you guys know me, I'm always talking, right? I had this conversation where we were talking about doodle owners, and I honestly believe that people pay more for a doodle or believe doodle owners more than a lot of other breeds because they charge more. For instance, if you really think about it, why does someone trust a doodle breeder but doesn't charge the same lab breeder who charges $500, right? If you ask somebody who has $500 lab puppies, I'm not saying that they're bad dogs or whatever, but if you had a lab breeder who's charging $500 for a lab, you're going to be more skeptical, right? You're going to be like, I don't know if this is true. I don't know if this is right. There's going to be all these things, right? Well, why is it that they trust a breeder who's charging $2,500? And I honestly believe it's because it costs more, therefore it must be true. If people are willing to give this breeder $2,500, $3,000, $5,000, people are willing to pay $5,000 for this doodle, it must be because they're really, really good dogs. If you've ever considered why a Mercedes is a $100,000 car, right? And again, if it's more expensive, we assume that it must be a better item. So oftentimes when you guys don't charge more every year, right, you accidentally fall behind either in the market or, again, when you're the cheapest groomer or you're lower bottom, people are going to wonder why. They're going to be like, why is this person so cheap? Right? It just is. So by charging more every year and keeping up with inflation or even ahead of inflation, what's going to happen there is you're going to be able to keep yourself as an expert based on your price proposition. So part of the reason that we're talking about inflation right now, guys, is because we want to get ahead of a possible recession. I literally did a Grow Wealthy Grooming where I talked about, it was called The Recession and Why I'm Not Worried. And, even though I'm not worried about the recession, part of what's happening with inflation is making a lot of you guys nervous. And the reason it's getting you guys nervous is because the money you were charging, the money you decided the prices were fair, isn't getting you by anymore, right? The prices that you deemed reasonable no longer get you as far as it used to. So in this live, what I discussed is like, what is a recession, right? And a recession is a period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activity is reduced greatly, identified as the fall is, the GDP and 2 consecutive quarters. So right now we're coming into a recession. If you guys have not raised your prices during COVID or after COVID and during this inflation, right? And you're coming into a recession, you are not only hit with about how much we've lost due to inflation, but also you're probably not going to have the savings that you used to, right? Now, personally, why am I not worried? And why am I not worried about my savvy students? My students that are in our Savvy Groomer membership, which we used to call the group mentoring, why am I not worried about them? Well, I'm not worried because I personally have an emergency fund, a sinking fund, and a monthly budget that leaves lots of room for additional savings. And I find that a lot of my students, when they hear me talk about things like sinking funds, like emergency funds, like having this and getting out of debt, they've also followed suit, right? It's so important. When you have no debt and you have lots of money, a recession really doesn't bother you. Now, inflation will absolutely bother you, but a recession won't really affect your business at all. And guys, if you don't know exactly what an emergency fund, it is cash you've set aside to cover unexpected expenses and other unexpected expenses. And I should say only unexpected expenses. So guys, if you're an employee in a perfect world, you should have 3 to 6 months worth of your bills, right? So that way, if you, God forbid, lose your job or you get really hurt and your workers' comp is taking time to pay out, you've got enough money to live for a couple of months. You'd be fairly comfortable for a couple of months. Pretty controversial, but for you guys that are business owners, I like to see you have at least 6 to 12 months worth of expenses, both for your business and in your personal account. And the reason is this is because if we have something crazy like COVID, what's going to end up happening is that you are going to end up, for better or for worse, hit really hard. And we don't know what's going to happen, right? So by having 6 months to a year's worth of expenses, you're going to have a lot of money in the bank. That way, if you can't take a paycheck, if the business has to physically shut down, if something happens and the insurance company is taking their sweet time paying out, you are okay. You're not going to lose everything. Obviously, as you pay off things, you don't have debt and you own things, that amount of money is going to reduce drastically, right? Somebody who personally, owns their van outright, right, in their mobile grooming business is going to need less money in the bank than somebody who currently has a $1,500 or $2,000 grooming van payment, right? But again, if they get into an issue where their van is, let's say, God forbid, the engine blows and they can't work for 3 months, and then there's a supply chain issue, having that money in the bank. And then also when you get back up and going, you haven't been working for 3 months, you might have lost a lot of those customers. So this is an opportunity, right, to protect yourself and insulate yourself. And again, this is something I personally do because it works. Because when things go sideways, I'm okay. And to me, that's incredibly valuable. So again, this is what I teach you guys, my students. The next thing, guys, is a sinking fund. And basically, a sinking fund is on the same stick as debt, but debt is the pointy end. So, what a sinking fund is, basically, you save up for things that you know you need to buy in the future. This is not an emergency, right? If you know your car is going to need new tires and an oil change, that is not an emergency. That is something you should be saving up for. And again, you can figure out how much you need to set aside to buy these things. But it's a lot easier to save up for things and then purchase it with the money you already have versus taking out debt and then taking care of payments. Remember, if I am saving up for something and I change my mind, I just don't buy it. I just have this bunch of cash, right? Versus if I buy something using debt and I later regret it, or even worse, I change my mind, it's a lot harder to sell that item for what I purchased it or even own it, right? You can see this all the time in cars, guys. A lot of you guys will buy a car and you buy a new car, right? If you had it in cash, it was a $40,000 car, and I handed you $40,000 in cash. Most of you guys are not going to take that 40 grand and buy that $40,000 car. You're going to probably take 20 of that, buy a $20,000 car, and take the other 20 and, go do something else with it, right? But when we take out debt, we're committing to that $40,000 payment. And what's even worse is that $40,000 car is now worth about 30 the second we drive it off the lot, right? Especially right now where cars, again, with all this inflation, right? Used car and new car prices have extraordinarily inflated because of the supply and demand issues, right? And part of all of this is getting on a written budget, which I know isn't sexy, guys. I know it's not sexy, but every month I know exactly how much money I have. I know exactly where I'm going to spend that money. And I have a very variable income. I don't know what money I'm going to have. But what I do is, because I do the budget a month ahead, I base it on how much I already earned, and then I use the money that way. Having a written budget makes it so much easier to know what to do with your money. It just makes life so much easier, right? I'm not reacting to bills. I'm being proactive. I'm like, I really want to do this with my money. So I'm going to save that money. I'm going to move it around, right? And again, when you start paying off debt, when you start being proactive instead of reactive to money, it means things like a recession don't matter as much. Okay. And again, having lots of money is bad when you have inflation. I 1,000% agree with that. But you've got to pick your poison, right? You want to make sure that I'm increasing how much I'm charging for things. That way I'm helping hedge my bets for later. And having that money, yes, it's now worth less. But at the same time, what's happening with that money is that it's protecting me and shielding me from things like a recession. Okay. So, guys, what can you do to deal with this inflation and this impending recession? And again, I really suggest you guys check out those 2 Grow Wealthy grooming videos, and you can actually check them down. I'll have Tiffany, if she doesn't mind, go ahead and link both of those in this. But basically, in both of those, we talk about what's inflation and then why I'm not worried about this recession. We might be like, okay, what the hell am I going to do to protect myself from this recession, right? With all this inflation. Well, I'm going to make sure that I have, your emergency fund, your sinking funds, and written budget in place, right? And you might not have enough money. You might be living paycheck to paycheck, but being on your written budget is the first place. When you're on this written budget, you're going to go, okay, how much money do I need to earn more of? Where can I hate cutting money, but where can I, maybe I'm spending money frivolously somewhere, or somewhere I don't actually value. That's really more what it is. It's not about spending the money like you don't, frivolously. I hate that. Girl, if you want to spend $600 a month on Starbucks, you go do that. But you do it with intention. You do it with, I really want to enjoy this money, so this is what I'm going to do, right? I'm not going to spend this money and be like, you know what? I'm just going to spend this money because why not? It's like, no, like, I'm really enjoying Starbucks and this is what I want to do. I want to spend the money just like this, okay? I don't care what it is. If it's, taking the dog to the trainer, you go and you spend all this money on dog sports or whatever it is, whatever you spend your money on, as long as it's intentional and you are accepting the consequences of what you're spending the money on, enjoy it. But by being on a written budget, I know what's going on both in my business and in my personal life, right? When I have my money in my personal life, I'm sitting down, I'm going, okay, what's going on? If we do hit a recession, what's going on? I'm paying attention to the inflation. How much did things go up? For instance, for better, for worse, guys, a lot of Savvy Groomer stuff went up, right? Because of inflation, because of, we're streamlining our business, we're restructuring our business, preparing for everything, right? We're doing exactly what we tell you guys to do. When things go up, you need to go, okay, this is going up. You need to say, okay, is this something that I want to continue, or is this something I want to reevaluate? Okay. So make sure, right, that you have the written budget. And if you have space in that budget, start saving for your emergency fund first. And then, allocate small amounts of money towards that sinking fund. That way you can start saving for things that you're going to have to replace, because we don't know what it's going to cost to replace them, right? Right now, something could cost $100 to replace. And then in a year from now, it might cost $200. I can't tell you how many of you guys that have bought items a year, 2 years, 3, 5 years ago, they're now double. So it's really important that we start paying attention to what is coming down the pipeline. If you've got to replace a pair of clippers that was $150 and now they're $250, that's important for you to know and start saving for that stuff. I also want you guys to create space in your budget to, save more money, right? If you're spending a lot of money going out to eat, which I love, you know how much I love cooking at home, right? Consider saving more. I actually decided to cut down on my Starbucks budget. Yes, we are all sad. And do more coffees at home. I still do 1 coffee in the morning at Starbucks, but a lot of times I'm doing my second Starbucks, well, I should say second coffee at home. Why? Because I'm setting aside more money into my savings. Why? Well, very honestly, because I want to make sure I have cash on hand. That way I can either buy things in the future, right? If I have cash on hand and someone is selling something, they're more likely to get a discount, right? For instance, if you decide that you have a payment on a car and you don't want to have that car anymore, you might be willing to sell it for less money if I have cash in hand. We saw this a lot with houses and mortgages, right? And there were so many people, and I should say more so in 2008 than now. I know a lot of you guys are like, wait, people are paying way overpriced for these houses in cash. Well, as a recession happens, as inflation is happening, people are going to panic and people are going to sell their houses, or they're going to foreclose, unfortunately. And when they do that, if you have lots of cash on hand, you're more likely to buy that at a bargain. So I want you guys to, if you can, either start paying more down on your debt or start saving and setting aside money. If you don't have any emergency fund, I'd really like to see you guys setting aside enough savings to have at least 2 to 3 months worth of business expenses and personal expenses, right, in your savings account. Okay. And I want you guys to, again, look at your expenses and give them a hierarchy. So in this, we teach survive, live, thrive. Survive is your basic 4 walls, your very basic stuff. Live is your stuff that makes you comfortable, and thrive is your stuff that, is really makes you happy, right? So for instance, obviously my Starbucks is thrive. If for some reason we have to cut back on expenses, the Starbucks will be one of sadly, the things to go, right? And the same thing with, let's say live. Like, what are some of those things? That might be Netflix and Hulu, right? That might be going out to eat dinner, right? What are those things that if you had to cut, you could cut? And I'm not saying you have to cut them now, but it's easier to grieve the loss of creature comforts when you don't need to give them up versus when you have to give them up. And also creating a hierarchy of, if we don't hit this amount of money this month, or if our profit margins change drastically, I'm okay giving up these things, right? Making that decision when you don't need to make that decision is going to make your life so much easier. Okay. And I know that sounds really silly, but it is really important for you guys to do that, because if you don't do that now and you wait till you're starting to lose things, it feels really bad. As someone who has been homeless twice in their life, not once, but twice, it's really hard to watch things get taken away from you. And when you have already agreed and grieved the loss of those items, it's a lot easier, because you're like, you know what? I don't need this. I've already, let's say Starbucks, right? Again, it's a very silly, frivolous thing, but part of it's not just the Starbucks for me. When I spend that money on Starbucks, it makes me feel successful. It makes me feel empowered. It makes me feel really good. It makes me feel like I've quote unquote made it, right? Because I don't even worry about how much I spend at Starbucks because spending $600 a month at Starbucks is really hard. So I don't worry. I don't ever go, should I have a second coffee or not? It's just like, nope, I want a second coffee. I'm going to do it, right? So saying to myself, you know what? I'm going to change the feeling of feeling like if I let go of Starbucks, I'm going to, I'm not going to be less with success, right? And that might be attached to food. That might be, at one point I felt like if my son didn't do karate, then I was a bad mom because, he needs to be in a sport. He needs to do this, right? So a lot of times we have these emotional connections to these things. So I want you guys to be okay with letting them go. Now, guys, now that you've already been able to grieve these things and deal with them, right? I want you to then say, okay, what am I going to do to protect myself against inflation and a recession? Well, guys, pricing is a key, okay? And we really are heading towards this possible recession, right? And the nailing down on your pricing is going to be so important. You can't just pull it out of thin air. I see so many people just weighing their prices, so many people making the decision to kind of price based on this random feeling that they have, right? It's not really, I don't know what the word is. It's really important that we build it based upon reality, okay? So you need to be able to cover your rising costs, okay? So the general price of goods and services in this economy due to this inflation, right? Your costs as a business owner are likely to increase as well. I'm sure for all of you guys it already has, okay? Your cost as a business owner is likely to increase as well. And that means your supplies, your rent, etc. If you haven't been hit yet, you will be hit, okay? And if you guys don't increase your prices to reflect the rising costs, your profit margins are going to get squeezed, and it's going to make it really difficult for you guys to maintain a healthy bottom line. Okay. If you're not making the profit now that you want, it's only going to get harder. So again, you want to make sure that people know that you are a good value. Okay. And you're going to want to invest in your business. You're going to want to invest in your business wisely, right? So I want you to think about this. We need to start fortifying and, planning for a potential winter, right? If anyone here is a Game of Thrones fan, winter is coming. It is time for us to, gather the grains and enjoy the stores. But part of that is making sure that you have a plan to do that. Okay. So if you guys are like, well, I don't really know where to even begin with changing my prices or possibly even completely restructuring my business, I really suggest you guys consider the Price Increase Masterclass. And I hate always being like, listen, I have a solution, but that's what it is, guys. Listen, the Price Increase Masterclass really does teach you guys how to take your prices, look at them, get the right price for your business versus just kind of winging it. Whenever I ask you guys, how did you pick your prices? A lot of you guys will say things like, I'm just a little bit more expensive or a little bit cheaper than my competitors. And again, you don't know where they got their pricing either, right? Or you've kind of decided this is a fair price. And that makes me crazy because I love you all so much. But how does that feeling come about? Is that based on childhood wounding and money myths and money limited beliefs? Or is that based in reality, right? I can't tell you how many of you guys are cheaper or the same price as Petco. Again, if you had a hair salon and that hair salon was the same price or cheaper than Supercuts, you'd be like, wow, what's wrong with that place? It's so cheap, right? We need to remember that Petco and PetSmart is the Supercuts of our industry. We need to remember that and continue to work as an industry to have that perception, okay? And if you're like, okay, well, how exactly is the Price Increase Masterclass going to help me? Well, we talk about what is your investment? How much have you actually invested in your business? And for many of you guys, this is $20, $30, $50, $100,000. For those of you guys who've been in business longer, you've definitely invested way more than that. And then we figure out how much do you actually want to earn? How much money do you want in your pocket at the end of the month? And again, this is different. A lot of you guys treat your business like your personal piggy bank, and we need to figure out exactly how much, right, you want to earn and take home. And then also how much should your business, the employees in your business take home, right? You want to make sure they make a livable wage. And then in module 3, we talk about what makes you special. How are we going to make you stand out? How are we going to allow you to flourish, right? So many of you guys don't express on your website or don't express to your soulmate client why they should pick you. And in the world with so many choices, you don't want to be drowned out. A lot of you guys too, when you talk about what makes you special, you're actually not that clear. I can't tell you people say like, oh, I have the best haircuts. Okay, we'll define the best haircut. And how does that client know that your haircut's the best versus somebody else, right? A lot of us are marketing our businesses to other groomers instead of actually to owners. And then in module 4, we're going to figure out what the best plan for you is. What is the best strategy moving forward? Is that going gung-ho and ripping the Band-Aid off and doing a big price increase? Is that getting rid of anyone who's over 4 weeks? That may even be moving to a membership model, right? And there are so many different options, and figuring out which one's best for you is the next step in that. Then in module 5, we get down to brass tacks and we figure out exactly how to notify your clients of the change. And I can't tell you how many of you guys have no idea how to properly let clients know you're going way up. And for some of you guys, there might be no notification. For some of you guys, there needs to be a gentle notification. Again, it depends on your branding and your relationship with your clients. I hate this trend of like the supermarket doesn't tell anyone it goes up, or putting just a sign right on your desk. I think we can't live in both worlds. We can't live in a world where we want a healthy relationship with our clients. We want them to have mutual respect, and we treat them disrespectfully. Treating them the way that, again, like the milk going up, we're not the milk. We are a kind relationship based. Now let's be clear here though. It goes both ways. I also don't expect a client to get snippy or snappy with me. And that's where we talk about in module 6, how to handle client questions. And a lot of that is, again, finding that healthy balance between the milk doesn't tell anyone that the price goes up, and the person at the counter talking to the Whole Foods cashier doesn't bitch about the price. And there is a science and an art to that, right? There's a healthy bit of being gentle and kind and firm, and not getting spiraled into somebody else's emotional situation. A lot of these clients are, they're really emotionally attached to us as, the business owner. And when we go up, a lot of them can see it as a personal attack. So we will go into how to deal with that. What are some ways of creating healthy boundaries, and how to minimize the overwhelm of dealing with a lot of clients who don't know what's going on. A lot of them are going to be like, I don't understand why you went up 50% or 100%, right? And we discuss how to deal with that. We discuss how to deal with someone saying like they're upset, right, with this. So don't worry about that if that happens, okay? Because we discussed that in the price increase masterclass. So guys, when it comes to inflation and when it comes to this recession, you do need to start preparing for winter, okay? You really do need to start preparing for that. But that doesn't mean that you have to do it alone, okay? And that's where in my business, we decided to do the group mentoring, which is going to become the Savvy Groomer membership. Because then you're in a group of like-minded individuals where you're coming in and you're actually being able to discuss these things together. And that's the way I've chosen to do my business with Savvy Groomer. We want you guys to become a member. We want you to be a part of the community. We do have our free Facebook group, Savvy Pet Professionals, which you're also welcome to join. But you're not going to get the level of expertise, care, and knowledge that you will in things like the Savvy Groomer membership and the group mentoring. That said, if you're not ready for that level of community and commitment, we always have our self-studies, and we want you guys to feel safe knowing that. We're not going to get rid of our self-study options for our master classes and for our workshops, okay? We are always going to allow you guys, even if you're not a member, you will always have access to purchase these self-study options. We're not here to pressure you. We want you guys to do the best. We just are ready for you guys that are ready to go ahead and prepare for this upcoming winter. We want you to be super aligned in your business. We want you to be really excited and happy. We want you guys to be more than ready for this. And I find that my students that have either taken the price increase masterclass and really implemented the different strategies available, they're really comfortable. They're not worried all about this recession. This inflation, they do an annual increase and they just increased accordingly. And there wasn't any fuss and there wasn't any problem. And that's what I want for all of you guys. And we're going to keep trying to post lives and give you guys lots of support. But of course, my true one-on-one time really has to be focused in on my group. Why? Because they're who's paying for it. All the free stuff and all the free time we give you guys, that is help paid for by the students that decide to invest in either group mentoring, which is going to become the Savvy Groomer membership, or the people that choose to buy the self-study. I really appreciate when you guys purchase any of our products. It helps me continue doing what I'm doing. And I can't tell you how much I love doing what I do. I can't imagine doing anything else at this point in my life. I just really love teaching you guys. I love giving you so much products and interest, and there's so many great things coming down the line. And we're always going to have free content in our Grow Wealthy Grooming, our Grow Wealthy Grooming YouTube channel and our Grady Bitch podcast. There's so much available to you guys. So take advantage of it, and post in the free group, the Savvy Pet Professionals. You guys are more than welcome to be there. And if you're ready to take the plunge, check out, the Savvy Groomer website. I'm going to post it up right now. SavvyGroomer.com. I'm telling you, we've been updating our website. We're going to keep updating our products. If you guys want to do self-study, do self-study. If you guys want to come into the group and learn things live, come learn them live. Either way, we're here for you. And if you're not ready to invest, there's so many free resources. We literally have hundreds of hours of free content in our YouTube channel, and we're building up our podcast. And we're going to be doing even more things in the coming future. So guys, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. It's always awesome to see you guys here live. Thank you so much. All right, guys, I will see you later. Happy grooming, everyone.